Hi guys, Tehran145 here, welcoming you to the second Tartarus boss of Persona 3 FES. Now, for those of you familiar with this game, you know this boss. I'm pretty sure you have gotten extremely frustrated when fighting this boss. There are many things I could say about this particular boss, but I will say something I think would be a compliment towards it. This boss is hard.
It must be guarded.
Like, this is one of those bosses that can be either moderately challenging or frustratingly challenging.
To analyze the enemy.
You see, turn order in this game is relatively random. For the most part, the main character will almost always go first. Almost always. But after that, it's anyone's game. These bosses, this trio of bosses here, known as the Dancing Hand, I believe? The name will flash up here in a moment. Dancing Hand, yes. These guys are weak to strike damage. As such, you have no weapon in the game at this point that lets you hit enemies for strike damage. However, the initial persona your character starts with, whose name is Orpheus, has the ability known as Bash, which is Strike Elemental. Exploiting enemy weaknesses is the way these games are supposed to be played. Exploiting weaknesses, status ailments, all that good stuff. You want to do this. In this case, well, in this situation, I was trying something completely different at the beginning. With that persona, Nekomata, the cat girl from earlier. You saw me use a move called, it's called Provoke, which inflicts rage on these enemies. I did not know this boss was susceptible to rage, but when an opponent is enraged, they can't use their special moves. They can only physically attack you. Normally, I hate the Berserk status in any RPG, but it's useful here, especially against this boss, because these bosses have, I want to say it's a wide variety of magic, though it's probably not, but they can hit you for Zeo, which is electricity. Actually, they can hit you for ice as well. So no, I was right. They do have a variety of elemental spells. I think they have the main three: fire, ice, and lightning, which means they can hit both Junpei and Yukari for their weaknesses and knock them down and get extra turns. They can hit you for your weakness as well if you have Orpheus, who is weak to Zeo, electricity. However, if you have a persona that resists any element, Nekomata here resists fire and has no weaknesses, you can take advantage of that to keep your HP relatively high. However, if you don't do that and they exploit your weaknesses, which they will do in this game, do not underestimate any enemy. Even random encounters will exploit your weaknesses and utterly destroy you. If you can avoid having your own weaknesses exploited, combat will be... I don't want to call it easier because, really, even if you can avoid having your weakness exploited, it's not easier. It's more manageable, I should say. And as you'll see right now, coming up, status ailments don't always work. Sometimes they'll miss. Like that. I'll show you... This isn't the only thing these bosses can do. I'm giving the commentary for my successful run against them, but before the video... Wait. Either before or after, you'll know when you actually start watching it. I'm gonna show you all the times they ended up killing me. I believe I lost 3 times against them. And the third one was bad luck. I'll explain that in annotations, most likely. Most likely. But this boss is relatively difficult. And it shows you how strategic you have to be for later on in the game. And not all bosses have weaknesses for you to exploit, so being able to knock them down and getting all-out attacks, that won't always be an available option for you. These guys happen to be weak to strike, and the guys before this, the Venus Eagles, happen to be weak to pierce. The boss coming after this, the Rampage Drive, has no weaknesses. In fact, this thing, the next boss, actually, it's either completely nullifies or it repels 3 different types of damage. All physical attacks do not work on the next boss. I don't know if it's block or repel, but using physical attacks against the next boss is not advisable. Then the next boss also resists fire. Has no weaknesses, I don't believe. So how would you knock him down? Well, normally you'd pray for a critical hit on your physical attack, but this guy blocks that, so you can't do that. So that's a boss that's all about strategy and keeping yourself alive, and whittling away the boss's HP. For this game, grinding to become extremely overpowered, it doesn't really work. Because this is a game where it's all about exploiting weaknesses. You can be under-leveled like I am over here, and still manage to beat a boss, simply because you exploited their weaknesses properly. And likewise, it doesn't matter how strong you are, if the enemy keeps knocking you down and you don't get a single turn to attack them, it really doesn't matter how much power you have, now does it? But that was the Dancing Hand. Relatively difficult boss. You probably won't game over against the Venus Eagles, but you may very well game over on those guys. You may game over on the Rampage Drive coming up, but that'll be for a later date. Until then, I'll see you guys next time on the boss run of Persona 3 FES.
You attacked the enemy's weak point. Here's our chance for an all-out attack! Let me at him!
Damn! Couldn't finish it off.
Yeah! This thing will... Are you alright? Single strike? Come on, stand up!